And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Marvel Strike Teams, a Heroclix strategy game from Andrew Parks, who's done a lot of different games with a strong theme to them. Now, I want to be really clear straight up here. I have no idea why this is called a Heroclix strategy game, because the game itself uses Heroclix figures, but their bases do not change based on damage. It's not compatible with Heroclix. The Heroclix thing to me is almost false advertising in this case, because it's just not compatible at all. Does it even say that on the back? It doesn't, and I feel like it controls the character with Heroclix combat dial. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's going to be a misnomer to several people who are looking to play this. But let's take that out of the picture. Let's just talk about the game itself. This is a superhero game where one person is going to be playing the bad guys and one or more people will be playing the good guys against them. My first thought was it's like a dungeon crawl. It's not really a dungeon crawl. It's a mission-based game where you're going to be fighting each other. Captain America and Iron Man and Agent May and Quake against Baron Strucker. And you can also get expansions, at least one here, the Avengers Initiative, where Loki shows up and brings in several other people. Okay, that sounds cool. I like Marvel a lot. Let's take a look. So players are going to be building a map here. So you'll have these different maps that you can build out of tiles. And you're going to be playing through some scenarios. So you'll pick a stage 1, a stage 2, and a stage 3. So the bad guy sees the stage 3 of my master plan. But stage 1 and 2, those people can see, save the test subjects, and stop the traitor. And so we'll tell you a little bit about the setup. It will tell you a little bit about what to do in each of these stages. And then stage 3 will be something you have to deal with later on. So this is a team versus team game. So you have the different people. So in this particular case, you can see here we have Baron Strucker. We got 3 Hydra soldiers against Agent May, Captain America, and Quake. But there are other people that are involved in the game, and you can get more in the different sets. Here's Winter Soldier and Radioactive Man. These have different spots here: attack, defend, move, and then an action track at the bottom of each of them. Players are going to be spending action points on their turn. There's a command point dial that each team will have, and each turn you'll be adding command points, and players can use these to spend them as additional actions in their turn, although the good guys will have to agree that, hey, I want Agent May to use one of these command points as an action point. The players have to kind of agree on that, but those will be giving you extra actions. So first, that's the command phase. Everyone gets a command point. Then we have the mastermind phase, where the mastermind will activate each of their characters that they are going to do, and then the heroes will activate their characters, and then we go to the end phase. When a player is activated, if they have any duration tokens on action cards, they'll remove those, and then players have to decide whether they're going to add 5 action points that they'll use this turn, marked down here, or remove 6 wounds. And so you'll have different wounds on different spots on the characters, so you're going to decide which of those to do at the beginning of the round. If you are on your starting spot, you can't go over this number. So I can't go more than 5 action points if Agent May, I want to keep calling her Aunt May, that's different, that's Spider-Man. You can't go above that number. But then you're going to be spending these action points to move and attack. You can also roll an action die if you want to try to get more action points. This is the die that's used for that. So I'm going to say, how many actions do I want? I want 2. So I roll, and if I roll a 2 or a 3, I'm fine, and I get 2 actions, what I've said. So I'll probably say 1 because there's a better chance at getting 1. However, if you roll these negative ones, you give your opponent a command point for their dial. So you have to be careful, but players can do that once per turn. Now, there's a whole bunch of rules on how the game works, but just kind of give you an overview of what characters can do on their turn. There's Baron Strucker, so you can move, and you can move diagonally. That costs you an action point to move. There are some rules about moving on the board. Usually when you move into spots with obstacles and stuff, you'll have some restrictions on moving. You can also move an extra space if all you do on your turn is move. That's basically running. You also can march and do different things, like you have It's interesting here because you have 3 Hydra soldiers or 6 Hydra soldiers together, and so they'll be able to move a different number whether they're advancing or marching, and that's going to be marked on the different characters' dials. Some characters even have special abilities when moving. Maybe they can fly, maybe they can run faster, and that will be mentioned on the different character cards. Now, attacking and defense can be used from both directly on your cards. So, for example, Iron Man has a repulse array and he has a block. Captain America can slug people and dodge people. But you also have cards. Maybe Captain America uses a shield smash or hurl a shield. And depending on the scenario, you might not have all these cards, but these cards are cards that you will be using when you make an attack. When you make an attack, it's going to be melee. You got to be next to the person, or it might be ranged, in which case you're trying to hit them from a certain distance, although you'll have a penalty depending how far you are from the person. And then they might play a defensive card or do something, and then there's no dice rolling, there's no randomness in the attacking. Attacking is fairly straightforward. You just have to decide whether you're going to block or not, and then you'll be taking wounds, which will be being placed on different actions, causing those actions to go up in value, with the exception of like henchmen. When henchmen take wounds, a lot of times henchmen are just removed from the board. Although you'll also be able to respawn henchmen and bring them back on. There is a whole lot. I'm not going to spend time, inflicting wound tokens, multi-part attacks, destroying objects and walls, damaging an objective token, status tokens, slamming characters, a really whole long section there on slamming characters, which is not something I do very often anyway, hurling objects, attacking teammates, and so on and so forth, and special interaction. And then the whole point of this is to get objective points. Sometimes you get objective points from defeating enemies. Sometimes you get them from doing whatever it says on the objective card. And you're trying to win the mission over a certain number of turns. That's pretty much it. I know that it sounds like it's kind of weird because it's a mix. It's a little bit more complicated than what I've just said, but at the same time, it's not much more complicated. You are literally running around straightforward to do things. It might be to blow something up. For example, in a tutorial, you need to blow up some spawn points that the henchmen are coming through, and the henchmen just need to take out Captain America and Iron Man and stop them from blowing up those spawn points in a certain number of turns. And each thing is going to be a little bit different based on the cards that are in here. The boards themselves are fine. They have the Hydra base on one side and the other, and they're decent quality, but oh my goodness, are they boring. It's just a bunch of gray. There's just gray, 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 gray. The components for the game are okay. Again, look at this. Look, it's broken barrels, and I don't know, just the whole thing has a very bland look to it. Now, functionally it works fine because you're able to run around. The boards for the characters are also fine. The artwork is good, although it doesn't really match. Like you see these 3 here, they don't necessarily seem, these 2 might have been drawn by the same person. This one doesn't necessarily match those as well. And then you have the little cards for the characters, which is interesting because they say things like hand-to-hand, master combatant, propel, fissure, pinpoint. And why not show some artwork? There's very little art in this game. This is the picture for Quake. That's the same picture on our cards that's on here. So now the whole thing is going to be about these miniatures here, which are the same as, the quality of the Heroclix miniatures. And these have a click thing here, but that's just essentially your level that you use and how many build points. So when you pick your action cards over the course of the game. Everything fits in a plastic insert that comes with the game, where you'll put the different miniatures in. And it's okay, but honestly, the components for this game are just okay. They don't really stand out. It looks like a bunch of Heroclix on a board with a lot of squares. The game comes with a quick start tutorial rules, which are really simple and walk you through a really small, minor tutorial, and this is both good and bad. The rules are not complicated, right? But this is both good and bad for a couple reasons. One, it's good because it teaches us the game. 2, oh my goodness, the tutorial is boring. I mean, if you're trying to sell someone on your game, don't give them a boring mission. At the same time, though, the setup for this game is like immensely bigger than it needs to be. Like, place this, do this. There's like 3 pages of setup for something that's really simple. And herein lies the whole problem with Marvel Strike Teams. I don't dislike Marvel Strike Teams. It's okay. Also, the year is 2019, and okay doesn't cut it. It has to be really good. I'm a huge Marvel fan. You should know this. You watch reviews. People accuse me of being easy on games because they are Marvel games or liking games more because of the Marvel theme. That may be true or not. Here, I can barely tell I'm playing a Marvel game. Sure, Captain America can throw a shield and Iron Man flies around, but they don't feel like Iron Man and Captain America. They feel like a guy who can throw something and another guy who has a rocket launcher. Now, I'm not trashing the game though, because this game is simple enough to teach to kids, despite that ridiculously overproduced rule book with all those extra rules. I do not, if they're going to, see, the game comes to a misnomer where, why are all these rules in the game and yet the game is this simple? The rules to a game need to match the complexity of the game. If there's a lot of little rules about stuff, then the game needs to deserve that, but it doesn't. This game is really simple, and that's great. And so you have to just go in with that mindset. Hey, we're going to run around, we're going to shoot at each other. Yes, there's strategy of when to play a card and how many actions to take, and will this be the turn that I heal or not? But that strategy doesn't feel very comic-y. It's also very odd. Like in the middle of a battle, I'm going to heal here for a second. Okay, I'm fine, let's go. That just seems weird to me. And while the missions are interesting and there's an interesting push-your-luck element with that die, I feel like overall the whole thing just comes across as meh. Now with kids, fine. You know, you get to play this and like, hey, you want to play with these characters? And hey, kids, there's a good set of characters to pick, and I like the different ones. I just feel like this is a loss of a license. If I want to play this game, why am I playing this over Heroclix, for example? Heroclix, which has a ton of miniatures, tons of characters, and offers a fairly involved, interesting back and forth combat mechanism. But instead, I can play a more simplified version, which doesn't seem that simplified, takes away some of the cool things of Heroclix, and looks really boring on top of that. This is sounding more and more like a negative review, and I guess at the end of the day it is. I would play strike teams with my kids, right, if they wanted to play it. And I would say, hey, let's move these guys around. You have some actions, I have some actions, and go back and forth and do it. But I think they might be a little disappointed too because they've seen the movies. So they know things that Captain America can do. And, you know, you don't even get all their special abilities at the beginning. You have to kind of build up experience points to get to more of them. And the thugs really beat up on Captain America and Iron Man a lot, at least in the first couple missions. I don't know. Again, I feel like we're giving a pass to a lot of games these days because of their theming, and Marvel's a really cool theme. And I like the comic book characters, but the board, it looks like you're in a warehouse, looks like you're playing tag and going around and punching people. I don't know. I wanted more from this game. So, Marvel Strike Teams. I'd play it again. I would try out new characters and stuff, but I'm not going in expecting Marvel. I'm just expecting a team versus team game, and there's a lot better ones out there. Its saving grace is that it will work. It's not so complex. Oh, but it is in some... I keep going back and forth on this, right? It's not so complex, and yet there's these rules about... Just get something else. Dice Tower Judgment. It's fun for kids.